When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to another exciting show. Today we have Esther Figueroa, PhD. She's an award-winning independent filmmaker who has had over 25 years of experience in a wide variety of media productions, including documentaries, oral history, educational videos, television programming, multimedia, web content, music videos, and feature films. As an activist filmmaker, her work focuses on indigenous knowledge, social justice, community empowerment, local cultures, health, and the environment. Her work gives a voice to those outside mainstream media and aims to counter the dominant values. Information on worldviews portrayed in commercial media. Her feature-length documentary, Jamaica for Sale, has won audience awards at the Africa World Documentary Film Festival, and her educational Masa Godfish Kyandon, that's our little dialect there, is currently featured in the Black History, Green History film series, October 17th at the British Museum. In addition to filmmaking, Fuega, who is Jamaican, is a published writer, linguist, historian, and educator. My co-host, as usual, is Chris Daly, the owner of Yard Genius website. He is a blogger at Jamaicans.com, which focuses on positive development of Jamaica. Chris, take it away.
Thank you so much, Denise, and welcome, Esther. It's great to have you this evening.
It's really great to be with you, Chris. Let me just say that the name is, in Jamaica, it's pronounced Figueroa, and in the Spanish-speaking world, it's pronounced Figueroa.
Okay. Figueroa. Okay. Well, you're certainly Jamaican. I hear that accent. Tell us a little about your Jamaican roots. Where do you hail from in Jamaica?
Okay. I am the youngest of 7 children of Dorothy Alexander, who was originally from Antigua Bay, and John Figueroa, originally of Kingston. I grew up at the University of the West Indies Mona campus because my father was professor of education there. And so though I live in town, I still consider the University of West Indies campus as my home.
Okay, great. So you certainly grew up there. And that's where you got your imbibing passion for Jamaica?
Yes, well, Jamaica, I think Jamaica is a place that really sinks inside very deeply. In many ways it's a very difficult place, but in many ways it's such a vibrant, creative, of course, beautiful place. And for me, I had to leave Jamaica, not by my own choice, when I was 13. And in leaving Jamaica, that was one of the most traumatic things that has ever happened to me, and I know that as diasporic people, you understand the whole thing of displacement. I'm in love with Jamaica, and to have to leave my home was very difficult. So I always carried Jamaica with me, that passion for the place, and when I was able to go home, I wanted very much to contribute and to try and do whatever I can do for Jamaica because I love it so much.
What your folks had migrated away, that's why you ended up in
Well, yes, what happened was my father got a position in Puerto Rico when I was only 13, and since I was the youngest, I wasn't old enough to be on my own, so we moved to Puerto Rico. and then from there I moved to the U.S. and other places. So, I always went home. We always go home to visit, but it wasn't until 4 years ago that I was able to finally go home to live again.
All right. Well, in our audience, we have high school and college kids, and I know they're also curious about the career path of a filmmaker. How did you come about taking this path for your career vocation?
Well, it's very funny. It was serendipity because I'm not trained as a filmmaker at all. I have a degree in history. I have a master's in East Asian languages and literatures. Chinese was my major, and I have a PhD in linguistics. So I wasn't trained as a filmmaker at all. I fell into it just by chance, and it became the thing that I did with my life. And so what I would say to those that would be interested in filmmaking, in whatever type of genre they want to do, is that, yes, you can go to school and learn it, but you can also learn it just by doing it. If you have stories that you want to tell, if you want to use film as a communication way of communicating your ideas, or if you want to use it as an activism tool, or even if you want to make money, if that's your goal, you can learn by actually volunteering or trying to work on a film production or just starting to do your own. And nowadays, the equipment is so inexpensive compared to what it was when I started out. When I started out, an editing system cost $140,000 US. A camera cost $70,000 US. Now you can have an editing system if you have a computer. You can have a camera for $1,000. So nowadays, you can certainly produce media yourself. And the key is, do you have a strong point of view? Do you have a story you want to tell? Do you care passionately about something? And then can you write? Can you organize? Do you have a visual sense? Can you act if you want to do narrative features? There's so many opportunities in the business that I very much encourage anyone to participate. And especially in Jamaica, currently we really don't have a strong tradition of documentary filmmaking. And so I really encourage especially younger Jamaicans to be bold and go out there and tell stories that need to be told.
That's wonderful. Thank you for your affirmation of that career path. I know the resources for this project didn't just fall out of the sky. How did you go about, getting the resources to do such a magnificent piece of work?
Well, thank you. Actually, the resources came from myself primarily and from the Jamaica Environment Trust, my partner. Usually a feature-length film, the first version was 92 minutes. I've edited it down to 84 minutes. Would normally take about 5 years to make and about $250,000 US depending. We made it in a year and with less than $30,000 US. Basically, the resources were my own time and talent and knowledge and the equipment of my two media companies, Vagabond Media and Junior Productions, and of Jamaica Environment Trust. Diana McCauley, who is a wonderful person, she's the ED of that. So her staff and resources, we partnered together. And then we got two sets of grants. We got Louis Pleasant and Leslie Rice, who are two New Yorkers who have a home in Montego Bay and are very worried about what's going on in Jamaica. They wanted to support the Jamaica Environment Trust because JET does such great work, and so they donated two sets of donations to JET. And earlier, the U.S. Embassy, the public affairs section, that is also impressed with the efforts that JET makes, especially their environmental education in the schools program, gave JET also a small grant, and that also went towards the film. Before we had any cash, basically what would happen is whenever staff members of JET were going to the North Coast to testify or to have meetings or whatever, I would jump in the car with them And as we drove along, I would jump out and videotape what was going on, and then I'd jump back in the car. That was the initial way it was shot.
Maybe for folks who are not familiar with JET, the Jamaican Environmental Trust, could you describe who they are and what their mission is?
Sure. Well, I'm not with JET, but I certainly encourage your audience to go to their website, which is jamintrust.org, and find out. But JET is a nonprofit, environmental nonprofit. It's been around for about 18, 19 years, and they do education, environmental education. They do advocacy, try to see that that there are good environmental laws and that the laws are enforced. They basically advocate for the environment in Jamaica. And Dana McCauley has, she's an ongoing personality. She's on TV, radio. She used to have a column in the Gleaner, and people in Jamaica know her very well because she's the person who will stand up and say the truth about what's going on.
Okay. So this film, it covers the history of the tourist industry in particular since independence and the policies that have been put in place that has contributed to the hyper-growth in condos and other huge hotel structures with the subsequent dire consequence to the environment. What was the triggering point for this hyper-growth in these structures, and is there a special event that triggered that this needs to be investigated further for you?
Sure. Well, first let me just say that in the film we actually start with the beginning of tourism, which officially started in 1891 with what was called the Grand Exhibition. And from 1891 to now, tourism has unfortunately followed the same sort of patterns, which is high indebtedness, a very subsidized industry, one that does not really reach or benefit a great number of people, and one that consistently, because it's a very cyclical and vulnerable industry, has failures from the very start. But in terms of the new boom, that is the boom that's been happening over the last 6 years or so, where we see for the first time in Jamaica, for example, the Palmyra, which is a condo. We've never had an 18-foot high, massive structure like that is. It looks like, you're in Fort Lauderdale. Or some of the extraordinarily large, all-inclusive new Spanish hotels that have gone up. What happened was basically things were very flat economically, and there wasn't much going on. And so the government at that time went looking for opportunities for development, and they thought that this would be a quick way to kind of show and to have jobs and things like that. So what we have now are these massive resorts, which are actually not only empty, but some of them have begun to close, even though they've been open for less than 2 years and have laid off workers, which has happened in the case of Ibero Star, and all of them have been laying off workers anyway. So what we have is the ruination of, large parts, particularly from Negril through the North Coast. And then we have the fact that the tourists are not coming, even with very discounted rates for these hotels, because we just have too many rooms and not enough tourists coming. So, we have this dire situation where we've destroyed so much, but we've gotten so little in return.
I was just curious, the media in Jamaica, aren't they curious enough, or are they independent enough that they did not examine such a critical issue?
Well, the media in Jamaica is not independent at all. The Gleaner's, a very conservative institution, and the Observer is owned by Butch Stewart, who is one of them, a main player in the tourist industry. So there's also the defamation laws in Jamaica make it very, very difficult for anyone to stand up and name anyone by name or to say anything because they will get sued. Journalists in Jamaica get sued constantly. There have been a number of individuals who are opinion writers, such as John Maxwell or people like Mutabaruka, who have their own radio shows, and now he has his own TV show on the environment. They speak up constantly about what's going on. But in terms of the mainstream media, what you have is a kind of repeating verbatim of government propaganda, such as GIS press releases, or the tourist industry itself. They just print verbatim whatever they are sent. And so it's a very positive rah, rah, rah kind of thing about tourism, and you don't get the in-depth investigative reporting that we really, really need.
So,
and in fact, when the film came out, the media wouldn't touch it.
Wow. So the media wouldn't touch it. So the government had any response to the documentary?
Well, not directly. Indirectly, there was an attempt to stop it from being aired on TV. Luckily, TVJ was very adamant that, would air it. So we're very grateful to them. They've aired it several times. They basically reacted through a kind of silence, but at the same time, there have been statements. The Prime Minister, for example, when he was opening the construction to the Sea Wind resort, which is in the Boat Lagoon, which is a fish sanctuary. That's in the film, and I have some updated footage of that, which is just shocking. This is Montego Bay, one of our most important fish sanctuaries, and part of the marine sanctuary is having a huge hotel being built right there, and the government is supportive of this. And the Prime Minister spoke out very strongly against environmentalists, saying that we were against development and wanted to take Jamaica back to the time of the Taino. And he said if the hotels had had any problems, it was just a mistake or a problem in communication or something. In other words, he was forgiving any kind of the awful breaches, environmental and worker breaches that the hotels go on with, and basically saying that environmentalists were terrorists.
Were terrorists? Wow. You've gone out to the consumer of this product of tourism. You've traveled abroad. You've shown the film and lectured there. What have been the response and the reaction to the film in the States and in Europe?
Well, the reaction's been, very good. A lot of people, I showed the film at UCLA just a few days ago, and one of the reactions which I hear frequently is that this is happening all over the place. There was a student there who had just been in Zanzibar and talked about the same thing happening in Africa on the Indian Ocean side. And when I showed it in Holland, many of the Dutch from the Caribbean talked about the same thing happening in the Dutch Caribbean. There's an activist in Grenada who's shown the film over and over and over, trying to stop some of the development that's happening there. So, often the response is very much that, they see the same thing happening in other parts of the world. The diaspora, the Jamaican diaspora, when they see the film, they're often quite upset, because they don't really realize that this is going on. And they get quite upset as to why, this isn't being stopped, and, what are Jamaicans doing, what is the government doing, and ultimately what can they do. So there's always, a response of concern, sometimes anger, sometimes despair, unfortunately, but always also a sense of, why is this going on, why is it being allowed to go on, and what can we do to stop it?
The government is in a thorny spot of sorts. To make a documentary, it's relatively easy given some of the circumstances they're faced with. And some are sympathetic to maybe their position.
Correct.
They have so many variables to hand. They have unemployment,
Correct.
the social impact of that. How about going about developing the assets of the country? Is anyone looking at the alternative solution and how we can manage both growth in a sustainable manner?
Well, the government has, in the film we say that, there are a plethora of studies, but of reports, but none are ever implemented. And the government itself, has a sustainable tourism plan that they completely went against. In other words, this has been studied for decades, and the recommendations of the government's very own studies, not to mention, academic studies and environmental studies and other, but the government itself, their own agencies, for example, recommended against this kind of development, recommended against the placement of, for example, where the Fiesta Hotel is and where Bahia is. So don't build denuded the mountain, and when there was a big rain, it washed down Fern Gully into, one of our primary tourist towns and completely covered it in mud and filth, So, if you want to have tourism, you cannot ignore both social needs and environmental needs, because it will come back to haunt you through violence, through criminality, and through the degradation of the very land that you're trying to, keep beautiful, so that people will want to come to visit your country.
So we've talked about some of the issues. What are some of the things that are actionable that you think folks in Jamaica and folks within the diaspora can be doing to support a sustainable Jamaican solution?
Sure. Well, the issues are very, very deep-seated. They're historical. They go way back, and they're very ingrained. They're very, very hard to change. But they're things that we can think about. On an individual level, the individual can take responsibility for their own life and try and consume less, to be more responsible about their choices and their behaviors. We have an awful problem in Jamaica with garbage, and we have a strange relationship. I mean, you can go to the beach and it's just filled with plastic bottles and things like that. We need, so individuals need to be responsible and change their behaviors. But on a governmental level or a larger level, we need a change of policy. We need alternative energy. We consume huge amounts of imported fossil fuels. We need recycling. We need enforcement of the existing laws, such as, pollution, sewage, those sorts of things. And we need to encourage things that local manufacturing, so we're not importing everything. We need to encourage organic agriculture and other forms of agriculture. We need to stop giving incentives for people to buy huge gas-guzzling cars. So on an individual level, we need to change our patterns of behavior, how we eat, how we live, how we consume. On the larger scale level of the government policy and, businesses, private sector and all of that, they need to change their behavior so that we're not constantly importing things that we cannot recycle, that we cannot afford, so that, people talk about sustainability, but sustainability can only happen if we make very, very, very big changes.
Do you think if the Jamaican diaspora were making more investments in their country, if there was I've heard talk about the Jamaican bond, that
Yes.
would help have a more heartfelt response to and change of behavior?
Well, lots of diasporic people do try and make a difference in different ways, and they often come back to Jamaica to try and set up businesses or whatnot and get quite frustrated. I've heard of many examples of that. The bond issue is actually a problematic issue. The Jamaican government is dependent on these very high interest bonds, which actually exasperate the debt. So it's really a bad thing. What would be good was if people in the diaspora who have, such, are educated and have talent and energy and whatnot, if there were, energy solutions such as, turning, trash into energy, or, solar, as well as just, sustainable green jobs. If you think of, for example, at the moment, the Nature Conservancy is a huge American environmental corporation that has projects around the world. They are taking the current Obama economic stimulus, and instead of using that money to do construction and, blanket everything over with concrete, they have projects in places like Florida and Hawaii and whatnot, which are, for example, taking algae off of the coral, which is, stifling the coral. We have that huge problem in Jamaica. They're employing, thousands of people to do work that, people need to actually improve the environment. So, this notion that the only jobs that we can have are disruptive to the environment is just not true. There are many, many, many jobs that would give ordinary Jamaicans, who are illiterate or who are just used to physical labor, who are, who are not in the technological age, actual real work, rewarding work. And then, for Jamaicans who are, do have the educational understanding, the literacy rates and whatnot, we can have, jobs that are in, IT or design, music, all those sorts of things. So I think we need to diversify the economy. We need to invest in human and social capital. And I think the diaspora could have a great role in that. My warning to the diaspora, though, is don't come to Jamaica and try and make it like South Florida. Don't try and turn it into, a place flooded with malls and fast food and all those kinds of things. Let Jamaica be Jamaica. Let Jamaica be unique. And don't come back and impose, North American values or British values, European values or whatever on Jamaica. Jamaica be Jamaica, but let's invest in it together.
Well said. I want to thank you, Esther, for your insight and your genius, and we look forward for you leading and continue to lead and share with us an alternative means in how to make Jamaica great. Thank you so much.
And thank you for the opportunity.
But Esther, before you go, for those of you who would like to learn more about your outstanding work, you should visit JamaicaForSale.net, and that will tell you people where the film is being aired or how they would have access to it.
Well, I do need to update the site, so I'll be doing that soon. The film is currently available for sale only in Jamaica because of rights issues. Those rights issues have re-edited the film so that all the rights are now cleared, and probably in a month or two it'll be ready for international distribution at film festivals, educational institutions, and on television. So they can currently go to JamaicaForSale.net, and they'll see clips of the film, they'll see reviews, they'll see information about the film. They'll be linked to Jamaica Environment Trust, and I'll be updating the website. There'll be curriculum. Eventually, there'll be curriculum for teachers, and we will have information soon on how people will be able to purchase it. At this point, they can just keep in touch, and they can make donations to Jamaica Environment Trust.
Oh, okay. And then to learn more about what Chris is doing, visit yourgenius.com or visit his blog at Jamaicans.com. Very interesting. You updated regularly to learn more about Jamaican Diaspora, the radio show, TV show, and any other thing that the diaspora would be interested in. I encourage you to visit JamaicanDiaspora.com. It has been a pleasure, Esther, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.
Imagine a country where jobs are plentiful and families can get ahead. A country where veterans are treated with dignity and respect. A country so powerful, terrorism is in retreat. Our families safe. A country run by a leader whose career was built on success. A leader who isn't beholden to special interests, but to the people themselves. Make America great again. Donald Trump for president.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.